remember being about 20 years old and just looking around and seeing everyone around me so dissatisfied with their body and just how unhappy they were, that I just made this statement to myself that I will never be like them. I will never be unhappy. I'm in control. I can be perfect, and the way that I can achieve that is by having the perfect body. And over time, that desire just manifested itself into an eating disorder where I was really not eating much of anything. My meals were very calculated, constantly counting calories and thinking about, what are basically the least amount of calories that I could consume in a day. Maybe that would look like a grapefruit in the morning and a handful of nuts at lunch and a piece of fruit in the afternoon and some oatmeal at night. It took a long time for me to realize that what I was doing wasn't normal. I was always thinking about what I could be eating, what I should be eating, what I was gonna eat in the next few hours, what I was gonna eat next week. It just became something that I was obsessed with and that I could not let go. Restricting what I ate made me feel like I was in control and that, honestly, I was better, that I was good enough. I was better than the people around me. It made me feel prideful. It made me feel like I was just good. I looked in the mirror and I was just focused on one area of my body. I was just focused on my stomach. That's all that I really cared about. I didn't see my body as a whole. I didn't see what other people were seeing. People would say things like, oh, did you lose some weight? And then slowly over time, the inflection would change. And so it went from, did you lose weight to, did you lose weight? And I realized that people around me were noticing something and that it wasn't a good thing. I went from being excited about the weight that I was losing to being really insecure about it. I remember one day I was trying on clothes and I was in a dressing room alone and just looking in the mirror and turning around and just seeing no fat on my body, just bones were poking out. My shoulders, my back, just everywhere. It made me feel shameful. Like, what have I done? You become addicted to control, you become addicted to not eating, and it's not a rational thing anymore. It's not something that you can just snap out of. In the middle of everything, in the middle of my eating disorder, I applied for a short-term trip. I joined a team of about 20 people, and we went to basically just share the gospel with college-age students. My first night, I received a little note from my roommate for the summer that said, I just want to let you know, I used to struggle with an eating disorder. If you ever want to talk about anything, please know that I am here. You are worthy, you are beautiful, you're supposed to be here. I can't wait to get to know you this summer. And I approached her about it and I was like, thanks for writing this letter. Why do you think I have an eating disorder? And she told me that the way that I looked at my pizza, she knew. And I think from that moment, I really knew that God had a different plan for me than I thought. He really moved in me, and he led me to a place where I was on my knees. If I couldn't control what I ate and what my body looked like, then I just wasn't happy. I just realized that I am worshiping the God of control and that I am not okay. He revealed that to me as sin, and he revealed that to me as my idol. I was initially ashamed. I felt overwhelmed by my sin and overwhelmed by my guilt. I think up until that point, I just thought of myself as pretty perfect, as like pretty sinless, honestly. I didn't realize that I was as broken as I was, and I didn't want to be. That the idea of being broken was terrifying to me, and it was embarrassing to me. When I got back to the States, I put to practice confessing this sin to the people that knew me and loved me the most. I started seeing a nutritionist, and she was someone who helped me practically fight my battle. I also joined support groups and various Bible studies that were directed towards women with eating disorders, so I felt like I had a safe place where I could relate to other women and other women could relate to me, and we were battling together. And I married, and life is different now because I have someone who's keeping me accountable at all times. Matt knows my entire history and my entire battle with my eating disorder. He practically helps me fight in ways by asking me the tough questions. He's the person in my life who encourages me, and he's the one who reminds me of who I am. He makes me feel beautiful, and he reminds me of my worth in Jesus. It's been a slow healing process of daily fighting my sin and daily choosing God and choosing his glory over my own. I am faced with the choice to eat food or not eat food every day. And it's still difficult at times. There are some days where it feels like I am free and that I don't have to think about it at all. And there are some days where a lie will enter into my brain. You know, you shouldn't eat that. And I have to make a conscious decision in that moment to remind myself of truth and to be aware that this thought that is in my mind is not from God, and that it's a lie from the enemy, and that it's rooted in me finding my identity in something that is apart from Christ. I've spent so many days wishing that I had never had an eating disorder and hating God for doing this to me. I've spent so many days hating food and just not being thankful and not being grateful that this is the way that he's built our bodies, that we need food. But years later, I'm so grateful for this struggle, and I'm so grateful that this is my story, that God handed me over to my deepest desire to be thin and to have this body and to be in control, so that I could see that that desire was empty and that it wasn't enough. Sometimes he doesn't miraculously take the thorn out of our flesh, but he allows us to struggle with our sin and to fight our sin. And so if that's what God needed to do in order to show me that he is enough and that he is good and that he is trustworthy and he is the God that I should worship, then I'm so thankful for it. He showed me that my sin does not define me, that I was once a slave to sin and now he's made me a slave to righteousness. That means that I am clean, that I am saved, that I am righteous, that I am holy. It means that I'm perfect because Jesus was perfect for me. And so when God looks at me, he sees Jesus.